Hello and welcome to Media Monitor on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. Now this is where we take a look inside the world of media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories. I'm Peter Ndoro and this is what's coming up on the show. This morning we unpack the issues at play in the creative industry generally. Now this is inspired by an open letter that was penned by veteran actress Vatiswa Ndaka to the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa. This bemoaning the poor treatment of South African actors. We have a panel to help us make sense of these concerns, including an actor, a casting director, an agent, as well as a producer. On our regular features, our international editor today comes to us all the way from West Africa, Abuja in Nigeria. We also highlight some of the other big media-related stories of the week. And of course, we'll be taking you back in history a little later on in the show. And today we have a man that was considered one of the founding fathers of democracy on the continent. Don't forget, you can also engage with us on social media. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And all you have to do is drop us a message on Twitter, #SABC Media Monitor. But before we unpack these stories, let's first take a look at what's on the front pages of our Sunday newspapers this morning. Let's start with the Sunday Times, and the paper has the headline, Malema Slush Fund Exposed. Now this relates to what the paper says is a company called Santa Clara Trading was structured to conceal payments to EFF leaders. The paper says that a fraudulent home loan application with VBS Mutual Bank casts some light on what appears to be a slush fund to channel money to the EFF or its leader, Julius Malema. The City Press is leading with a story describing what the paper alleges to be a high-stakes war between South Africa's intelligence chiefs and the State Security Minister, Ayanda Dlodlo. The paper suggests that the president will most likely be called in to quell the crippling conflict between Dlodlo, the acting DG of the agency, Loiso Jaftas, as well as the head of the domestic branch, Mahlodi Moufe. The Sunday Independent, well, that's carrying a story about what it describes as shady dealings at SAA with acting board chairperson Thandeka Mkhoduso apparently implicated in a 200 million rand tender row. The Weekend Argus on Sunday is reporting a story about a female teacher accused of sexually abusing pupils at a prestigious private school, Bishops, in Cape Town. A full-blown investigation is apparently underway to the possible sexual abuse of a number of pupils over several years by a 32-year-old female history teacher. She allegedly sent selfies wearing skimpy panties and videos of a sexual nature. The Sunday Tribune, well, that's leading with a story of former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal trial, which is set to start next week as he faces charges of racketeering and money laundering. The trial is due to start on Tuesday in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Zuma's family says that he's facing the same kind of treatment that he endured during apartheid. The Sunday World is leading with a story involving Finance Minister Tito Mboweni. Now, the paper is alleging that he's embroiled in an extortion drama involving a student and a prominent businessman with ANC connections. Apparently, the student wanted 7,000 rand and student debt paid for her for not releasing text messages and recorded conversations with the minister. Okay, so that's the front pages of the print media. Let's take a look at what has captured your attention on the social media platform Twitter. And a short while ago, these were the top trends in South Africa, with the Japanese Grand Prix, of course, dominating. And I've got to tell you, this race nearly didn't happen, of course, because of the typhoon that hit the country, the worst apparently in 60 years, but it did get underway, and as usual, all the drama. And I know that Max Verstappen, as one of the guys who's come out of the race. So these are some of the images from the Grand Prix and the tweets that have been coming through. So as you see, Max Verstappen's race not happening, but some great pictures that are coming through from the Formula One Twitter site. Grand Prix, Japanese. It did take off, and I think it could be nearly finished now. I'll give you an update a little bit later on. But that's what's captured your hearts and minds on social media this morning. Bound to change during the course of the day. Maybe even because of what we discuss on the program in a short while. Stay with us for all of that and more. Right, now we begin with this. Veteran actress Vatiswa Ndaka has met the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, to discuss allegations that performers are being abused and treated unfairly by production houses. This comes after a public uproar responding to a 6-page open letter penned by Ndaka to the minister, where she highlighted low pay, unfair labour practices and poor working condition amongst other issues. Ndaka singled out Ferguson Films, describing the production house as slave masters who are underpaying actors and are guilty of other exploitative practices. Ferguson Films owners have since responded to the allegations, denying the allegations and threatening legal action against Ndaka. The actress sat down with the SABC on the day that her open letter went viral on social media.
I think there's a hint that you know, but I think there needs to be more awareness. And when I say that, I'm referring to such things as when you hear that, oh, the actor or this artist has died without anything, we have to collect money. And so that already indicates that there is something wrong. Why is it that every time an artist dies, they don't have money? So it's always been there, and it's not getting any better. So what people need to know is that we don't live the glitz and glamorous life. It's really not that at all. We work very long hours, and most of the time we don't get paid, I think, what's due to us. I mean, in 2019, I'm still being offered rates of 2005. Yeah. So for us, it's almost as if inflation and the cost of living, those things are not considered, and you have to make do with the little that you got during that one production. We don't get salaries.
So that was Vatiswa Ndaka speaking to us a little bit earlier in the week about the travails and the challenges that actors and other people in the industry seemingly are facing at this time. Well, joining me to discuss some of the concerns raised in Ndaka's letter and to help us gauge the state of the creative industries, I'm now joined in studio by Kimberly Stark, who herself has been a leading actor for many years and a successful casting director. Also in this panel, someone who has many years' experience in production and broadcasting and is also currently the Deputy Chairperson of the Independent Producers Association, Tandy Davids. I'm hoping as well to be joined in a short while by Florence Maseba, who has been a voice for some time on how actors are treated in the industry. Ladies, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, so I just want to get your perspective, because you both wear different hats in the industry. And let me start with you, Kimberly, perhaps, because you've been an actress, actor. I'm not sure what the correct word is nowadays.
It changes from month to month, but yeah.
But also a casting director and agent. And I've been a producer at one stage, and I remember having to have conversations with people like you about fees.
Yeah.
So what Vatiswa raised, is that something that surprised you or something that's an open secret?
Definitely an open secret. I mean, this has been going on for a very long time, and I don't think it's only unique to South Africa. I think it's a problem that's worldwide. You know, artists are not recognized. No one looks at it as a profession. They look at it more like it's a hobby. I mean, you hear people always say, well, my parents told me that I need to finish school and then they'll support me in the arts, because, you know, there's no steady paycheck.
Get a proper degree, proper this, and then.
Exactly. And it's really difficult, because as an actor, that is our profession. That is our passion. That's our profession. That's what we're good at. A lot of us are trained to do that. And yet we're not taken seriously as a professional. You know, we're looked at the entertainment, but no one identifies with the professional side of it. Yeah. And it's very frustrating. And as an agent, it's so frustrating for me to look at young actors who walk in thinking that, you know, this is me, I'm gonna buy a Ferrari, and I'm sort of going, yeah, buy the Beetle first, pay it off.
Yeah, second hand nogal.
Yeah, absolutely. Hand me down, perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, so Thandi, you're a producer. You've been in the broadcasting arena as well, at the top of the food chain, if we can call it that. And I just wonder, I mean, some of these cries that you hear, these are not new to you. How did we get to this point where it just continues?
Well, I think, you know, we have a very small sector. Let's start there. And we've got a very limited number of broadcasters. So effectively for years, you just had the SABC, the DSTV multi-choice stable, and ETV commissioning. And there are commissions, which is also it needs to be factored into how we have that conversation. You've now had some international broadcasters coming in commissioning, but they're small. It's still largely run by the big three at the end of the day. And I think that when you've got an industry that is that small, you're completely reliant on the rules and the monies and how that's being set up by the broadcasters themselves. And therein lies the rub at the end of the day.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that, because if you're the actor at the bottom of the food chain, you're blaming the producers. And if you're the producer, you're blaming the broadcasters. Is there a clear line of blame? Because I would imagine being an agent, you've got to try and get the best for your client from the producer. But the producer, as you said, is sitting with a commissioned budget. So let's start with the producers and the role that they play dealing with the broadcasters.
Well, I mean, look, you have to pitch your idea. Let's start there. If the broadcaster likes that idea, they'll say to you, we've got this amount of budget to make it happen. You've then got to sit down and sharpen your pencils and try and work out how you're going to, within that budget, actually deliver the product. And at that point in time, you go out and you start wrangling with crew, wrangling with actors, to try and make sure that everyone can get fed at the end of the day, but also that you're doing within the budget constraints that you're working with. And you know, as I said, it's not a matter of this is the budget, that's what I've got to work within, and that's what I've got to work within.
All right. So the Ferguson says that the broadcasters look at every line item, including the fees paid to actors. If that's the case, then it should never be a surprise to them what actors are being paid.
No, it shouldn't, because they get cost reports. You know, we've got very specific software that we work with from an accounting perspective within the industry, and those cost reports are there. So you can absolutely see which line item by line item where a producer is spending and how much a producer is spending, and that the broadcasters have sight of, yes.
All right. So Kim, coming to you. So being an agent, you deal with all the producers, sometimes for the same actor on different projects.
Yes.
So give me a sense of, is there a general delinquency across the board, or are some producers really trying to come to the party?
Okay. You know, I think producers are getting the short end of the stick on this. In terms of, they really are trying to be accommodating. You know, I've been in the industry for such a long time that I have a very open relationship. So my relationship might be different from other agents, but I have very open relationships with the producers. I won't work with a producer that I don't know or doesn't have much of a track record. So the producers that I do work with, we have very open conversations. Some I know are going to try and keep those fees as low as possible. And I know that because I'm also a casting director, so I've worked the crew side of it, where I've been told, get the best you can for this amount. Or don't contact this particular agency or actor because they're going to be too demanding. So, I mean, I've seen both sides of it, and I understand both sides of it. But as a manager, as an agent, you know, obviously I need my artists to be okay. I need them to be comfortable. You know, they expect, you know, the actors to go and perform their hearts out, work 12 hours a day. But if you're worried about how you're going to pay school fees, if you're worried about petrol, if you know, if you have to catch a taxi, all those things do affect you as an artist. So I think there needs to be more discussions with the broadcaster, to be honest with you, because the broadcaster really is the one who can turn around and say, we won't even use this actor because they're on something else, or. So it's not always the producers. The broadcasters are very much to blame here.
And the other thing we're going to touch on, particularly after the break, is how do you value a performer's fee? Because, you've got two actors, one's been at it 10 years, one's just started. How do you value? How do you even start the conversation?
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
Because that's at the heart of this, I guess, because some people think, I deserve more.
Yeah.
And how do you measure that?
But I mean, if you get somebody who is brand new out of school or off the street, how can anyone expect them to get the same pay as an actor who's been in the industry for over 20 years? There is no comparison there. This instant gratification, instant fame that we're dealing with at the moment is really harming the actors. You know, you've got your celebrities and your high-profile Instagram stars, and then you have your actors.
Yeah.
And the actors are doing it for the love of acting, but they need and deserve to be paid.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to unpack these issues, particularly the value of work. And the word exploitation has been used quite a bit, and I want to get to the bottom of that as well. And I'm hoping that we'll also be joined by Florence Masebe. Stay with us.
My name is Millicent Nyembe. I'm the owner and the founder of Nyembe Waste Management. We are based in Harankua industrial site in the township.
Millicent Nyembe started this business in 2012. Armed with only a computer and a deep need to teach her community about safe waste disposal and management, Nyembe saw a gap in the market. Her business deals mainly with cleaning crime scenes and transportation of healthcare risk waste.
When I think of us as black people, we don't know more about healthcare risk waste. We don't know more about cleaning crime scenes. We don't know more about the contamination of any areas. Then I said, let me just open it into our township.
Nyembe recalls the difficulties of entering a mainly white and male-dominated industry. She initially wanted to open a waste treatment facility, but soon learned that she would need 23 million rands for this.
I had nothing. So they said to me, the best thing that I can do is become a transporter, to transport the waste to a treatment facility. Then I did that when I started. I went for contracts. I remember I got a contract from Aponya 911 to decontaminate their ambulances and take their healthcare space. And I didn't even have money to go and collect that waste, even transport I didn't even have. Then I decided that I go and hire a vehicle to go and do that work, and I've done that. And then that's when I started the business.
Starting a business in the township, just like starting anywhere else, requires in-depth research and analysis to get off the ground and to remain sustainable. Nyembe Waste Management now employs more than 8 people and is currently contracted to a number of waste generators. Despite her achievements, Nyembe says her hard work doesn't stop here.
I am not aggressive on my marketing. I think that's why maybe I'm growing a little bit slower. I think I must get into too much on social media. Maybe it will help me to, like Instagram and Twitter, maybe it will help the business to grow.
Nyembe encourages aspiring entrepreneurs to start with what they have. She says the township is their oyster.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor, and we carry on now with our discussion around the state of the creative industries, an issue that was once again brought to the fore this past week when veteran actor Vatiswa Ndaka penned an open letter to the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, bemoaning what she described as the ill treatment of actors in the industry. And helping us unpack this issue, I'm now joined also by Florence Masebe, who's of course had a stellar career herself. Thanks so much for joining us. So one of the words that keeps coming up is exploitation. Is it as bad as that?
It has been as bad as we say it, maybe not even half as bad as what we try to explain it as. Remember, this industry has a legacy of people who came in without any education. They just walked in with nothing but their talent. That got exploited. They are not always informed about how things should work. That gets exploited. They have no clue what the value of the work they're putting out is going to be. That too gets exploited. So it starts with how people get paid. It goes with how people get treated once they step on a set. It goes further into people not even realizing the rights they have as performers as they step onto a set.
I get a sense that there's fear plays a huge part of this exploitation because you're scared to speak out. Vatiswa talked about there could be consequences to her career as a result of speaking out.
Yes.
Tell us about some of these consequences and this fear that's generated.
The consequences are simple. There is a cabal of people who feel they own the lives and livelihoods of actors who speak up. So you'll never work in this town again is a very popular phrase in this industry.
Because you can be termed a problem child.
We deem you impossible.
Yeah.
I remember a casting director from one soapy who phoned my agent a few years ago and says, "We're interested in getting Florence onto the series. How difficult is she?"
Wow.
And my agent says she's extremely professional, but if you're going to start with difficult, maybe you don't really want to work with her.
So this has been carrying on. At the top of the food chain, we've got the broadcasters. What's in their interest not to fix this? I mean, clearly they've known it's going on, but they do nothing about it. Tandy?
I think it boils down to budget at the end of the day. I know that as the IPA, we're working with Saga to try and get terms of references into place from our producers specifically, so that we know what's happening on set, and we've agreed with Saga in terms of how to move forward on that. We are also aiming to engage with the broadcasters around terms of references as well. But it's difficult, you know, when you're trying to negotiate with people who hold the purse strings. Is not going to be easy. And then I think also we have to speak as one in the industry. And I don't think that the industry has been very divided. We don't belong to organizations. We aren't forced to belong to organizations. You know, I think in more mature markets, you literally cannot produce unless you belong to a particular organization, or you cannot act unless you belong to a particular organization. And I think that's also problematic in terms of it. It allows everyone to get exploited in various ways because we don't speak with an active voice, and we don't belong to organizations that can bargain for us in some shape or form as an industry and within our realms within that industry.
Yeah. I see a lot more dramas, a lot more TV series, telenovelas than ever before at the moment. Why isn't that translating into a better life for actors?
It's translating into a better life for producers.
Wow.
Because they can pull their work if they're getting the work in bulk.
Yeah.
Bad budgets, yes, sometimes, but when it's a lot, for them, the bulk is there, they're able to do what they're doing. The actors, however, remain the bottom of the food chain. The producers must work with what they get. The broadcaster is just happy to be raking in beautiful money and ad revenue from work which they look away and don't care to see if there's any exploitation in the process of producing. So really, the actors are in sweatshops here, and the producers are giving them beautiful handbags and sneakers. The broadcasters are wearing designer labels for free.
Wow. And the other thing I'm seeing, and I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing, but there's lots of dramas, but I'm starting to see the same actors doing all of them at the same time.
That, you know, okay, that's a bit confusing because what we deal with as agencies is that, like, I've got one artist who is amazing, but I cannot put him forward for anything else because his contract will not allow him to.
Right.
He's not allowed to do advertising. He's not allowed to do even feature films. We even have one, I'm not going to say who, broadcaster who won't allow me to have him do a feature film in case someday down the line it will be shown on, you know, another channel. but not in a not in a cinema, but actually on a paid TV sort of scenario. So it's like, even though you're seeing different people, the same people, I don't experience that. I battle to allow my artists to do more than one production at a time. Florence,
the value of an actor. How do you come to what you're worth? That you say, hang on, you're underpaying me, and the producer thinks, actually, this is what I have, take it or leave it.
Look, I've been around for quite a number of years. I think that alone should say you are not going to try to pay me the least. Two, I'm very aware that what the producer claims is all they have in their pocket is likely 3 times less than what they listed as my budget on their budget that they sent to broadcaster. We need some honesty to start happening here. Chances are, when they come to me and say, all we have for a global fee for this entire season is 200,000 Rand, they've told the broadcaster that I'm taking 500,000.
Okay. So the IPO, Tandy, isn't this what you're there to do, to try and bring some good conduct into the industry by producers?
We do, but we are also voluntary organisations, so they're producers that don't belong to the IPO. You know, we, with all our good intentions, are working with Saga to try and make sure that these kinds of things don't happen. But as I said, we're voluntary organisations. There are a number of producers who don't belong to us. And we are having discussions between us and various industry bodies about how we go about trying to create sanction for producers who are misbehaving at the end of the day. But we don't have an industry ombudsman, so we don't have one central place that people can come to and make those complaints to, that everyone belongs to. You know, whether you're an editor or an actor or a broadcaster or a producer. So I think because it's such an unstructured industry, these problems are going to be there. And once again, it goes back to me saying that we need to start structuring properly, and we need to actually belong to organizations that do have the ability to be able to take sanction when sanction needs to be taken.
And then there's always this thing about unions versus employers that we see in other industries that can create this antagonism. Is there a minimum wage in the industry?
We wish.
We do not have minimum anything. This is why it's important to regulate and have legislation that guides and binds everybody. At the moment, it's the wild, wild west.
Isn't there legislation in the table?
There's been legislation on our president's table since March 2019. Please ask him why he's not signing.
Signed.
And if he's not signing, why is he not returning it to the National Assembly to tell them which parts of it have constitutional bothers for him? Those are the 2 options he has, but right now he's actioning the ignore
button. Will that legislation make a difference?
It will make a major difference in how things work. It will make a major difference in saying, here's the bar, don't try to go under it. And that's very important.
Absolutely.
What will make it better for your actors? When you're busy negotiating with producers and ultimately the broadcast, what would make it better for your actors?
What would make it better for my actors is the recognition for the work that they have done in the past. So, you know, like Florence is saying, don't bring some child off the street and say, here you go, now you're working with Florence, so you guys are going to split this pay. She's established, she's the queen, she needs to be treated as such. There needs to be some sort of hierarchy and respect that happens. I want to quickly though, go back to what you were saying about the actors being on so many different things. It's because the broadcasters are rebroadcasting.
Okay.
So, you know, it's being shown again and again and again. So then there's a crossover. So it looks like the actors are working on so many things. Meanwhile, they're working on one and they're not making enough money to be able to have medical aid, to be able to buy a car, to be able to buy a house, to pay school fees. It's a real problem for artists. And it's so frustrating.
So Tandy, explain to me this whole thing about royalties and rebroadcasts and so on and so forth. There's a thing that actors would like to get a slice of that, so that as the producer, do they even get that as well?
So when you have a commission, you don't get anything, and it's problematic.
Hand over the tape and that's it.
You hand over the tape, and if any of the broadcaster unsells it. Nothing. So
really?
Nothing. Yes, that's in a full commission. I mean, there are different ways of working. The industry's now shifted. A lot of broadcasters now doing pre-sales, where effectively that does mean that hopefully in the future, as we move forward, the producer will own that IP, and that allows them to get some money off on sales and broadcasts outside of the original broadcast on the channel it's on. The IPO absolutely supports that actors get royalties.
Yeah.
We feel we should be doing so too at the end of the day. Absolutely support the royalties, but as I said, we don't. We as producers at this point in time, if it's a commission, whatever the agreed percentage is that comes in from the broadcaster, that's what we make, and we don't make anything after that.
So if I get you correctly, what you're saying is that by and large a lot of the work is on commission, and what that makes you actually is almost like a glorified freelance employee of the broadcaster, because you're producing some work for them and they're paying you for that, and then you carry on with your life.
You go on to the next commission, effectively.
All right.
If you're working off commissions from a broadcaster, yeah, they're producers who don't work off commissions. But yeah, if you're working off a commission from a broadcaster, yes.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is that we need to get productions that are self-funded to get away from the pressures of the broadcaster. But once you're in there, you still have the battle of dealing with the producers as actors.
Whichever way, we still have the battle of people acknowledging that actors deserve to earn economic rights.
Right.
And until the law says everybody is forced to give that right to actors, nobody's going to voluntarily do it. There are broadcasters that have told actors and agents to their faces that there's no law in this country forcing me to do so. I am not going to pay your actors any residuals.
Are these dramas, productions that we see on TV making money?
Do you see lots of adverts in every favorite drama of yours? I know I just finished a drama and everybody would complain, these adverts are holding us up. Whenever you're seeing all those ads, you must know that my work made that broadcaster millions.
But the production costs per minute have surely been going up over time. Is that translating to more per minute for the actors, or what's the story? Or the budget's coming down?
I don't think the production costs have been going up. To be honest, I mean, for one thing, we know with the SABC's drama over the last couple of years, the producers still haven't been paid. At this point in time, that sometimes your budgets are halved and not increased at all. So. It's not a matter of the broadcaster going year on year and annually there's 10% more, there's 20% more on a production. That's not what's happening.
All right, I've run out of time. So final 20, 30 seconds each. What's your most important message to those that can hear and do something?
My most important message is for the President to please do something about the Performance Protection Amendment Act. Sign it, reject it, and send it back to Parliament and specify why you are doing that. But do something.
Mine is for the artists out there: believe in yourselves, know your rights, fight for your rights, speak up.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Okay. Tandy?
And from our perspective, I think as an industry organisation, is we wanting to engage a lot more with various industry organisations and specifically with broadcasters. We don't have a set terms of reference that we know how to work with from a producer's perspective, and those things need to be put into place.
Ladies, this is a conversation we can have for hours, but I think one that we need to do frequently just to gauge how things are moving, and let's hope that not just actors, other people in the industry are properly treated and remunerated. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you
so much. All right, you're still watching Media Monitor. We've got lots more still to come. We're going to be crossing to Nigeria in a short while, getting a sense of what's happening in West Africa. Stay with us.
The women and the children of this great country are under siege.
I can hear the cries of women in the streets.
Women are dying with protection orders in their homes.
Women face the onslaught of an oppressor with a different face.
The scourge of violence against women is a dark stain in our nation.
I stand here today and I think of Valencia Farmer. I think of Uyenene. I think of Jesse Hess.
There must be harsher punishment for rape.
We've been mourning, we've been sympathizing with the women that were raped in our country.
Gender-based violence has reached extreme levels which can no longer be tolerated.
Don't strike your sisters. They are the mothers of tomorrow.
Our mothers have cried, our sisters have cried, our daughters have cried, and we are saying enough is enough.
You're locked on to the SA Today desk.
Thank you so much for staying with us as we continue to tell your story.
Mr. Mashaba joins us now in studio. Welcome to the program.
No, thank you very much for the invitation.
So much will be discussed, and I believe it's not your last visit to our studios there.
I hope not. Well, that's it from me, Flo Ladwaba, and the rest of the team here on SA Today.
Welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor. Let's now shift the focus from the acting industry with my guest editor, Shamano Mahadi, who is a media and communications specialist lecturer at TUT. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much indeed, Peter.
All right. So what I want us to do is take a look at some of the big stories that played out during the course of the week, and then maybe we can chat about them a little bit.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so we begin in China and Hong Kong, where the prohibition of face-covering masks using colonial-era emergency regulations was proclaimed by the Hong Kong authorities. The order came into force on Saturday, October the 4th, in the face of widespread criticism. According to the Hong Kong Journalists Association, journalists that carry a protective mask are at risk of being arrested, detained and prosecuted. They may have to try and justify wearing masks, though, for professional motives in their defense. Footage of reporters being requested by police to remove their gas masks has already surfaced on social media. Very concerning development taking place in that part of the country. Now, coming back home, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, the FSCA, conducted a raid on the offices of businessman and media mogul Iqbal Survey on Wednesday, allegedly in connection with his investment companies. However, Survey, who owns the independent media group, claims that the investigation is politically motivated. He claims that he's being targeted by the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and President Cyril Ramaphosa. And this ahead of releasing a damning article on the pair. And the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture on Tuesday denied reports that it had sent former President Jacob Zuma 80 questions about the evidence against him. An article in the Time Select published last week reported the Commission had sent Zuma an 11-page list of areas of interest, which included questions on the firing of Nhlanhla Nene and Pravin Gordhan as finance ministers, the nuclear deal and with Russia, and questions on his relationship with the late Bosasa head Gavin Watson.
I think that the media must realize that when they don't check their facts properly, or when they do some things that are difficult to understand to the ordinary reader, that might give rise to all kinds of suspicions. And we don't need any unnecessary suspicions to be associated with the media. The media plays a very important role, and they need to be respected. Their rights need to be respected. Journalists do, generally speaking, a very good job. Society relies on them. We would like to be able to know that they do their job with the necessary professionalism.
All right, so that's the Deputy Chief Justice, who's the chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, not happy with the media, Chamana. And sadly, this isn't the first time he's had to speak to the media in this way.
No, correct, Peter. I mean, you would remember since this commission started, the Deputy Chief Justice had some concerns, but in the latest developments, I mean, as you know, taking notes from the clip that we've just played, he says the media must realize that when they do, I mean, when they don't check their facts properly, or when they do some things that might be difficult to understand, for the ordinary reader or viewer, it becomes problematic. In this particular case, it would appear to me that there is almost every evidence which shows that there wasn't any document sent out with questions which are now alleged to have been sent to the former President Jacob Zuma.
But now, these are not small publications. I mean, I can almost understand a small paper with one or two people, but how is it that we get such fundamental things wrong?
Look, it has everything to do with taking the profession really serious. I mean, a story like that, of course, it will have massive implications. It's not something that you want to write about when you are in a hurry trying to chase some deadlines. I mean, there are serious implications. Judge Zondo has demonstrated, I think, by all means possible that he wants to be honest with the public. He has since requested for that particular document to be released. But I think from our side as media, I think let's take that one on the chin. It was completely
out of order. All right. The other one is this Iqbal survey. Now, one of the things that happens is when a person who owns media is he himself part of news stories. So you then wake up on a Sunday morning and you've got his newspaper writing a story. And the Sunday Independent, for example, is such a case where he says he's being chased by Pravin Gordhan and the president. How does a reader read into a story like this where you own the paper and you're in the front page in the news?
Big drama right there, Peter, because, I mean, as we now understand it, between Serve and Gordhan, there seem to be, issues. Of course, the raid that took place in Cape Town last week, obviously, as they are telling us at least, they wanted to investigate and they talk about the money that was offered to the company in the tune of 4.3 billion in 2017. But on the one hand, you have several who says, no, this is basically, it has nothing to do with what they are saying. They know we have documents or information that has something to do with them, and that's basically what they are looking for. But answering your question, how does an ordinary reader believe when they see this front page and you are the owner of this particular newspaper? So, and again, it speaks to editorial independence. Is there some kind of influence in terms of how stories are written and all of that? I guess we'll leave it to the reader, but it raises more questions than answers.
All right, okay. We'll leave that there for the time being because it's time now for us actually to go into our news archives. And today we go back to the 14th of October, 1999, when the first president and father of independent Tanzania, Julius Mwalimu Nyerere, passed away aged 77. Nyerere became a symbol of the struggle against colonialism, not just in Tanzania, but across the continent, including South Africa. Let's take a look at how the SABC covered the story that day.
Former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere has died in London after a long battle against cancer. The 77-year-old Nyerere, known as Mwalimu, or the teacher, was one of Africa's most charismatic post-colonial leaders. Maureen Monday reports that he spent the last few years of his life trying to resolve political conflicts on the continent.
Born Julius Kambarage in a village close to Lake Victoria, the former Tanzanian president won independence for his country from Britain in the early 1960s. During his rule, he pursued the policy of Pan-Africanism. Nyerere introduced his own form of African socialism, in the process nationalizing almost all aspects of commerce and industry in Tanzania. Although his socialist policies brought economic disaster, leaving Tanzania as one of Africa's poorest nations, he was admired for his integrity and intellect. The Mwalimu, or teacher, stepped down from power in 1995, being one of the few African presidents to do so voluntarily. Through the Julius Nyerere Foundation, the former Tanzanian leader concentrated his efforts on promoting democracy and conflict resolution in Africa. Nyerere had a long battle with leukemia and spent the past few weeks in a London hospital. He lapsed into a coma last night and was finally declared dead this morning. He leaves behind him the reputation of being one of Africa's greatest statesmen.
All right, so that's a story taking us back to 1999. Don't forget, hashtag SABC Media Monitor. If there's a story or a year that you'd like us to go back in time, our archives are like no one else's, so we'll get that story for you. We start now taking a look at what's in the newspapers this week, both here at home and also internationally. And we begin with our international editor, who's joining us from Abuja, and that's Samson Omale. Samson, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. So, what's on the front pages of your paper? Which paper do you want to start with?
Very good morning to you, Peter. Good to see you again. Now, I'd like to start with this story coming from the Punch newspaper.
Okay. So that's the Punch newspaper. Take us through that.
Yeah. Okay, so the Punch newspaper has this banner headlines where it talks about the angry police in Nigeria who are querying the federal government 9 billion naira, that's over 386 million rand allocation for uniforms in 8 years. They're angry, going by this story, that for most of them, they never get issued uniforms or other accoutrement as they get into the police force. For some of them who spoke to this reporter, for over 20 years, for some of them, they were only issued uniforms just once in their entire career, and they have to look for other uniforms. And I can tell you this, Peter, that when you see some of the Nigerian policemen on duty, they look shabbily dressed. Some of the clothes are tattered. Some of them suffer from discoloration and all whatnot. And because there's no uniform issuance of these police uniforms, what you get is the fact that you have different colors. You know, you can have a sky blue and all of those. And I think these policemen are actually angry.
So what you're saying is that this 9 billion is not actually being properly allocated. Some of it, the money is disappearing, essentially.
Absolutely, and some of them are alleging that the top echelon of police officers get to share this money after it's been allocated. So they never get to see it translated in uniforms being supplied to them consistently. Some of them don't have boots. Some of them, even the berets they wear, are actually...
We're running out of time. We're running out of time, so let's go to the next paper, which is...
The next paper is Business Day, and it talks about the Nigerian budget being marred in controversy. So President Muhammadu Buhari presented the budget to the National Assembly last week, and it's been getting all the heat. And part of the controversy is the fact that some people have described it as being anemic, also described the budget as not meeting the yearnings of Nigeria, and the budget also, for some others, criticized it because it is further going to increase taxes. Nigeria currently are heavily taxed, and part of the proposal in this budget is that the budget is going to be, the taxes, the value-added taxes are going to be increased by 50%. A lot of people are not happy. There's also the case of the return of toll gates to the roads, where people will be charged for flying the roads and all of that. So a whole lot of issues are coming out of the budget, just like you heard the one from the Nigerian Police Force.
All right, and the next paper?
Daily Trust. Now, Daily Trust has this banner headline: 9 Kano kids kidnapped, sold in Anambra. Now, to just put the context to this, Kano State is in the far north of Nigeria, while Anambra is in the far east of the country. And this distance between these two states is over 760 kilometers. So you have kids who are being kidnapped from this part of the country and taken to this other part of the country. And this particular story resonates with a lot of Nigerians because in the last couple of weeks, we've had a whole lot of issues with kidnapping. People are staying unsafe. They're kidnapped from their homes. They're kidnapped from on the road while they're traveling, and they're feeling very insecure. So this story is quite topical. It will resonate with a lot of Nigerians.
All right, and that's very, very sad to see this issue of children being snatched and sold. All right, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Samson Omale, thanks so much indeed for joining us on the line from Nigeria, giving a sense of what's happening in the media there. That's Samson Omale, a very renowned journalist in that part of the world. All right, let's come back home, actually, to South Africa now. And Shamana, you're going to take us through the Sunday papers here. Which one grabbed your attention the most?
The story that, excuse me, Peter, the story that grabbed my attention is the story of Dr. Pastor MP Ragimana.
Which paper was it?
This was in the Sowetan.
Okay. Sunday World.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So here is a man who grew up in the farm with very little education. Over the years, he get himself, educated through very, limited resources. He establishes schools, amongst other things. He established clinics. As you know, Peter, in this country, one of the things that we battle with its issues of health facilities, clinics, people making sure that they are taken care of. But beyond the schools and the clinics, he would also identify people that are struggling in the church, making sure that he build houses for them. So in his passing, really, I think it marks a great loss for the country, for somebody who had done almost everything in making sure that he empowered the people of this country.
So the front pages
and the continent, most importantly.
Yeah, and the front pages of a lot of the other papers, as usual, there's some kind of drama, scandal, you name it. But also next week, an important week for former President Jacob Zuma. His trial finally gets underway. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, without doubt, and I think it's going to be a busy time for former President, Jacob Zuma. I mean, he's going back to the, to court to face those, corruption charges. And I think just a couple of days after he's going back to the commission of inquiry with Judge Zondo. So I think there's a lot that we can expect out of, those two separate stories. Yeah.
SAA, shady dealings, just when you think that things have settled and you're turning them around, it sounds as if the chairperson there might have influenced herself in terms of how a tender was awarded.
It's been tough for SAA, I think, over the last couple of years. It has been a scandal after the other, bailout after the other, and this plays an important role in our economy, and of course regarded a leader in terms of flights in Africa. But I think we've been struggling, and the latest developments, I think they just make it even worse.
Shaman, I wish we could chat a bit more, but time's never on our side. But always great to have you on the program. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and being part of the show.
No, thank you so much indeed,
thank
Peter.
You.
Thanks.
All right, and I want to say thank you to you at home as well. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching Media Monitor. We hope that you'll join us again at the same time next week, at the same place, for more of the same. Don't forget, hashtag SABC Media Monitor. We want to get your thoughts. From me and the team, have a great day, everyone. Stay blessed.